comments and then be glad to take your questions. As most of you know, after we're finished with this, after those questions, the budget director will be available for full details in her office downstairs. Over the past 18 months, my priority has remained steadfast, creating jobs and moving Missouri's economy forward. This unrelenting focus has required strong determination and tough decisions. We've taken a look at departments across state government to increase efficiency, cut costs, and save money. We've trimmed the state workforce by 2,200 positions, cut bureaucratic overhead, and clipped our energy bill by about 6%. These decisive actions have allowed us to continue to invest in K-12 classrooms, higher education, public safety, and other vital services. I take these management decisions extremely seriously, and because of our early and continued efforts, Missouri is seeing clear results. Missouri's unemployment rate has continued to click down, and we've seen 4 consecutive months of steady job growth. We've frozen tuition in our public colleges and universities, and we've firmly held the line on taxes. As we work our way out of these difficult economic times, we must continue to follow the path of sound management and fiscal responsibility. Our fiscal discipline over the last 18 months has preserved Missouri's spotless AAA credit rating from all 3 rating firms. We're the only state in the Midwest to continue to hold this endorsement, which keeps borrowing costs low for schools and local government. Now, last month, the General Assembly passed the budget for the next fiscal year. Leaders from both parties, in both chambers, stepped forward to help cut costs, and the budget they passed was an important step forward, and I appreciate their work. But, as we all understand, additional cuts would be required to balance the budget for 2011. Just like every Missouri family and every Missouri business, no state government must balance its budget each and every year. No exceptions. Some might say we've been belt tightening. We may have had to punch another hole in the belt this time. So today, as I sign the budget for fiscal year 2011, I am restricting an additional $301.4 million in expenditures to keep the budget in balance. This figure is based on a slight improvement in revenue and lower estimates on expenditures than we projected this spring. We had a pretty little decent May, an uptick in May. These expenditure restrictions include a number of important programs and projects, and I do not make these decisions lightly. Included in the restrictions are $70 million in funding for the transportation categorical for school districts. This restriction will be shared by all districts on a prorated basis. Restricting these funds was not an easy call, but it will allow us to preserve full funding for K-12 classrooms. $50 million from the Access Missouri Scholarship Program and $4.1 million from the Bright Flight Scholarship Program. These reductions maintain these scholarship programs at a level the state can afford, and these cuts will be significantly offset by a new $30 million needs-based scholarship program approved last week by MOHELA. As soon as they finalize the details, MOHELA will announce more information about how that program will function. And funds from other programs we've had to clip in social services, mental health, and other areas. Again, the budget director will have all of the details for you. In total, these restrictions will reduce the state workforce by about 250 additional full-time positions from across state government. Again, those decisions are never easy, and we hope to be able to accomplish many of these reductions by workforce attrition. By making these restrictions, we have been able to preserve other critical priorities and services, including K-12 classrooms, funding for our colleges and universities, and law enforcement. Specifically, we have preserved funding for K-12 classrooms and First Steps, autism services, and our shelter workshops. We preserved our agreement with public colleges and universities to freeze tuition for a second year in a row, making Missouri the only state in the country to freeze tuition at all 2- and 4-year schools in a second straight year. We've also provided full funding for our successful A+ scholarship program. And we've preserved full funding for state law enforcement on our roadways and on our waterways, for crisis nurseries, for services for abused and neglected children, and for our state's veterans homes. Here in Missouri, We balance our budget in good times and in bad, when it's easy and when it's hard. These restrictions are an important step to help us meet that obligation, and I will continue to hold the line to make sure the people of Missouri have a government we can afford. As we move forward, we will keep Missouri's fiscal house in order. By making sound decisions and by investing taxpayer dollars wisely, Missouri is well positioned as we continue to move our economy forward. We are seeing the initial signs of growth, and we have continued to avoid the dire situations and partisan gridlock so many other states are facing. Here in Missouri, we will continue to invest in our K-12 classrooms. We will uphold our promise to freeze college tuition, and we will preserve critical services for children and families. And we will support law enforcement officers who keep our communities safe and secure. These investments will help us create jobs and move Missouri forward. And they will fulfill our promise to children, students, families, and communities across